There we go. I'm still freaked out by the 1984 voice. The
Yeah.
number of recordings I've done, and I'm still like, oh, hello. So anyway, welcome back to another episode of She's Doing It Her Way. I am so excited for today's guest. You probably know her best as Bang to Write, but Lucy is with us, going to be giving us some practical, real implementable tips and strategies for writers, whether you're a novelist, whether you're a screenwriter, whether you do a little bit of everything. This is going to be the most practical advice you will probably find on the internet when it comes to writing. So, with all of that said, Lucy, tell us what you do in a nutshell.
So basically I'm a script editor and a blogger and an author. So basically I've got like multiple hats going on. In terms of the blog, that's what I did first, because back in those days I was a script reader. So script readers, if you aren't familiar with that, are the people who read screenplays for like agents and publishers and producers and individual writers, anyone basically who needs feedback and who needs to get through that pile of submissions. So that was my job for a long time. And I still do some script reading, although mostly I've moved into script editing these days, which is slightly different because script reading is about assessment of the manuscripts, whereas script editing is about the development of the manuscript. So I'll be giving reads to people with a view to actually, changing things in the document, and developing them and making them hopefully better. So things like characterization, working on the concept, working on the structure, those kind of things. So that's what I mostly do these days, and I work with writers who are writing screenplays and who are writing novels as well, and I do a lot of kind of coaching work with those people as well. So we're not just looking at craft. A lot of the time we're looking at things like submissions and self-belief and just keeping going, really, because of course this industry is just such a bitch. Really it is an absolute killer on the self-belief and actually keeping going. I mean, I've been doing this now for 20 years, and I don't think it's unfair to say that the vast majority of the people that I started with back in the early 2000s no longer write, because they just got so despondent and so peed off that they gave up and got a day job somewhere. Others will give up for a bit and then come back and then give up and then come back. The notion of somebody who does consistent work in this industry like I have over a 20-year period is quite slim. So yeah, the odds are genuinely terrible. You have to keep going in the face of insurmountable amounts of crap from other people, and from even when you do your job, maybe other people don't do their job and they drop the ball and you end up not being able to do such and such, or funding fall through and all that kind of, it can be punishing. It really could. So that's my script editing work. As an author, I have written non-fiction and fiction. My latest book is this one, which came out a couple of weeks ago. The eagle-eyed people at home will see that my pseudonym there is Lizzie Fry. I do publish under Lucy V. Hay as well, but I just decided I didn't have enough to do, or enough on my plate, so I'd have a second brand and do high concept thrillers, as well as the kind of like domestic noir YA stuff that I was doing before, and also the non-fiction, which is under Lucy V. Hay as well, because that's what my blog is under, because I write about writing basically. And then so yeah, the blogging, the author, all that kind of stuff. I do workshops as well. Everything's kind of all under the bangtowrite.com umbrella, including my own writing as well. And I've actually kind of been able to get various contracts on the basis of stuff that I've written on my blog as well. A lot of people don't realize that you can utilize blogging as a kind of shop window, if you like, to kind of show people that you know what you're talking about, and stuff about stuff, in terms of the non-fiction arena, but also in terms of the fiction arena. The very first book I wrote was writing and selling thriller screenplays, which I've just updated actually, and will be out for its 10th anniversary next year. It's like hard to believe that came out 10 years ago, and I didn't pitch for that. I didn't make a submission for that. Somebody came to me, the publisher came to me saying, I like your blog, would you like to write a book about writing? And I'm like, yeah, totally, I would like to do that. But equally, when I wrote my first Lizzie Fry book, which is called The Coven, Again, I didn't pitch for that. A publisher came to me. They said that they really liked my work on stuff like The Handmaid's Tale and Mad Max Fury Road. Would I be interested in writing a novel with those kind of themes in, those kind of feminist themes in? And again, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so my two kind of projects that are probably my most famous and best reviewed were two things that I never actually went to look for. You know, I got all of that from doing what I do on the internet and kind of saying, hey, here I am, this is the stuff that I do, and you know, I'm sucking people into my sphere of influence, if you like. And when people like what they see and you're consistent with it, then you can get stuff out of it.
Yeah. This is what I love about the internet and social media and every filmmaker that I talk to. As soon as you say marketing, I mean, you will just watch them try and run away, which is quite entertaining if you're on a Zoom call and they physically feel like they have to sit there and stay on their laptop. Marketing and social media and putting yourself out there is such a source of stress for so many writers, especially when they're used to hiding behind their projects. You can
Oh
always
yeah.
tell when they're used to, you know, the project always comes first and it's maybe 5% of them and their work. So how do you, you know, with the people that you work with, is that a common thing for them as well? And if so, how do you get past it?
Well, that's a really good question. And certainly marketing is something that I talk about a lot with my writers in terms of actually presenting ourselves on the internet in such a way that it becomes a no-brainer to hire us, basically. The average writer does not understand how marketing works. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen because I'm talking about marketing on Bang to Write today. So I've got a little infographic that might be quite useful. So this is predominantly about self-publishing, because of course a lot of writers want to take their destiny into their own hands and self-publish and keep all the money for themselves, all that kind of stuff. But what they don't understand is that marketing is a sizable chunk of that. You know, so many writers, they think that they can just whack a book up on the Kindle and just kind of suck up the profits. It doesn't work like that. And the ones that do understand that they have to get the word out about their book, they tend to just do what I call book spam. They just go in Facebook groups, drop Amazon links and go, please check this out, it means a lot to me. It's like, what does that mean to anyone else? I mean, that might work with friends and family, but that doesn't work with the average person, because we just don't care. You know, why would we care about your book when we want to write our own book? Or if we don't want to write a book or make a movie or whatever, you know, why do we want to look at yours when we can look at others? Because of course, on Amazon alone, there are 33 million books. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. 33 million. I mean, how are you going to stand out from that? And then you've got all the Netflix, Amazon Prime, all that kind of stuff. If you get your film up there, your TV series, why are people going to choose yours and not other people? Why are they going to add it to their Netflix queue and not others? Because there's a wealth of content out there. I mean, there's literally an embarrassment of riches out there. I mean, we are living in a golden age of content. That is just, I mean, we can watch anything at any time and it's there forever. You know, it used to be that, you know, when I was a girl, if you didn't watch the series of the moment and you missed it, it was gone. You couldn't kind of hire it from Blockbuster, generally speaking. The most famous ones you could, but the average TV series, once it had been aired, it was gone, and unless it was repeated, you wouldn't get to see it. Now it's there forever on the platform and you can watch it whenever you want. So why should we choose yours? Well, when we look at marketing, we should think about what I call, and what marketers in general call, the sales funnel. Okay, and this is a really simple sales funnel that I made just at the weekend, and it's only got 4 steps to it. Okay, which is awareness, interest, decision, and then action. Okay, now most writers think that you jump from here to here. Okay, and that is all that you need to do, that you just need to get your message out there, and then people will take action. They'll download your book, they'll add your TV series or your movie to their queue, and then they'll watch it, you know, or they'll read it. No, there's these 2 other sections, which I break down here today. Okay, so for example, in step 1, they hear about you and your book or your movie, your TV series. That's awareness. Okay, and then they become intrigued by you from that. Okay, the idea that they jump straight to buying, yes, that can happen. It is possible, and certainly there have been instances where I've seen a book or I've seen a movie or TV show and go, oh wow, I like the look of that, and do it straight away. That can happen, but generally speaking, the average consumer has to see something 7 times before they make that decision. Okay, so you've got to get the word out about your TV series, your book, your movie 7 times minimum before someone will take that step. Okay, and they get to step 3. Okay, so it's not a question of just saying, here's my book, and they buy it. You say, here's my book, people go, that sounds quite interesting. They might add it to their TBR or their wish list or whatever. They might do that, but they probably won't. Okay, so you've got to say, here's my book, here's my story, here's my TV series, my movie, 7 times minimum. And in real terms, I've got to be honest, it's probably way more than 7 times. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say to me, oh, you're always banging on about your books. Oh, you're always sending me emails. Stop sending me emails. It's like, well, just if you're not interested, unsubscribe. And they will. The people who aren't interested will unsubscribe. They will say, oh, okay, I'm not interested. But the key to remember is that when I'm doing my awareness of stuff, it's not just a question of buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. I've got to add value to those posts. Like, people will come to this post today to learn about the self-publishing mistakes. And as a result, they may be interested in my course that's coming up very soon on the 17th of September, which is write your first novel and get it published. Okay, so that is the added value to get them to my course or to my book or to my whatever. That's how it works. You give them something that helps them be intrigued by you, that helps them make a decision, that helps them take action. That's how marketing works. But the average writer just thinks we jump from buy my book to this, and books are bought. It doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work like that on any level, whether it's whatever medium you're working in. And that's why it's really important to have what marketers call a sales funnel, and actually keep that in mind at all times while you're actually creating stuff. Because, why should anybody out there buy your stuff or watch your stuff or read your stuff? Why should they? If you keep that in your mind, then you can be good at marketing.
It's really funny with COVID, that number jumped up by a crazy amount. It went up to 21 times on average.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you think about, if you were just doing social media posts, if you're going to do 3 a week, which is kind of like a happy minimum amount for a lot of people, or maybe maximum if you're new to doing social media, how long is it going to take you to get to 21 posts if you're only doing 3 a week?
Exactly. I prefer to think about it because obviously 21 posts a week, makes me kind of my brain explode. And also the problem with social media is not everybody goes on social media, especially post 2016 when MAGA happened, when Brexit happened, when things like that. A lot of people became, and when COVID happened again, and the BLM protests, made us realize how many racists were in our timeline and stuff like that. But us naive white people, then a lot of people, because of these things that happened, actually started to come off social media, especially Facebook after Cambridge Analytica. Hashtag Me Too as well made a lot of people come off as well, because they just didn't want to see it because it was super triggering for them too. BLM as well, because there's just so many people talking crap about COVID and all that kind of stuff as well. So social media engagement has absolutely nosedived in the last 5 to 7 years. I used to get loads and loads of hits, for example, from Twitter, and now Twitter's only good for branding. I mean, the click-through is just dead for me on Twitter, and apparently it is for most niches as well. And I still get most of my engagement from Google. You know, people are actually Googling things like self-publishing mistakes, and it comes straight to my website and stuff like that. And generally speaking, Google is still your best way of getting organic traffic in the 2020s. Social media is great for branding, it's great for your voice, it's great for engaging with your audience, but they tend to want to stay on those platforms. They don't click as much as they used to. And blog traffic is going down as well. And that's why the king of marketing in the 2020s is still the email list. And any writer who wants to be taken seriously in the 2020s needs their own email list. And building that is no mean feat. I've got about 11,000 people on my email list now. And the reality is, as long as your audience is engaged, you don't actually need epic numbers. You know, there was a marketing theory that I read years ago when I first was starting Bang to Write, and it was called 1,000 True Fans. And I forget who wrote it now, but it was a really kind of eye-opening kind of situation for me. He said that as long as you've got 1,000 true fans, you can get your stuff out there and you can get good stuff back with an engaged audience, because it's not about numbers, it's about quality, it's about engagement. A lot of people buy followers on social media, for example, or they buy space in newsletters that cost like $200 and stuff like that. You know, there's a lot of people out there making a mint off people who want to get their word out there. But the reality is, we have all these tools at our own disposal, and they are free or low cost to do that. And we can build that. And, you know, everything I learned from John Morrow, who is at smartblogger.com. I absolutely love that guy. He is amazing. He is a guy who's very disabled. He can't move. He literally can't move. And yet he has made millions from blogging, and lives in a house with dolphins in the beach just outside and all that kind of stuff. Posts all these wonderful pictures of his lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. And he has the best resources about building your blog, building your email list, all that kind of stuff. And it's really worth checking his website out, because he changed my life, basically, completely and utterly. He taught me the importance of headlines on blogs, for example. That's why my blogs are things like, you know, top 5 reasons you're making a big mistake, or you know, hey, your female characters don't need more dialogue, you know, things like that. You know, these clickbaity kind of titles made all the difference to Bang to Write, because I discovered, weirdly, that the average Bang to Writer responds better to a negative headline than a positive one. So if I write things like, hey writer, you could do this, here's why, people don't read that. When I say when I write the same article but with a negative slant, like, this is why your career is in the crapper, find out why, they love that. It's like, okay. So, and, you know, and serving your audience like that, you know, giving them what they prefer is the key to building your audience and engaging with them.
Yeah. You know, you shared a post not that long ago that I loved, when you were talking about how the most kind of angry comment inducing style post you could share was the typical, you can do this. Yeah. And I loved it, because I say exactly the same thing to people. I'm like, look, when we break it down, it's surprisingly easy. It's not going to take that long. It's going to be fine. And you can see them get a little bit tetchy about it. And for anyone listening to this, they might be thinking, oh God, like, marketing as well as writing, like, I'm already struggling to find the time just to sit and write. So for you, obviously, you have multiple projects going on at any one time. You know, you're doing a ton of different things. How do you balance all of that and still find time for that deep creative work, or that kind of deep creative headspace that you need to be in for writing?
It's a tough one to kind of answer, really, because it's always been my thing. I mean, I was a teenage mother. I mean, every banter writer knows this. I talk about it a lot because one thing I want people to realize is that even if you come from a deprived background, as I did, I mean, I literally had to decide whether I wanted the television on or the lights. You know, that's how bad our deprivation was. It was a nightmare. But I was still able to build a career even from inauspicious beginnings. And I want people to understand that and realize that actually most of us will have something going for us. You know, even if we haven't got much going for us, we'll have something. And for me, my ability to get organized was my superpower, basically, because I grew up in a chaotic household. Everything was everywhere. All, you know, it was insane how I grew up. And so I had, as a trauma response, basically, because of everything that was going on in this very dysfunctional family, I became very organized. So that was my superpower. But everybody's got a superpower of some kind, and actually isolating what that is, you know, because we all have challenges. You know, every single one of us has problems like no money, don't know anyone in the industry, you live in the middle of nowhere, you've got mental health problems, you've got a disability, you've got neurodivergence, you're not white, you know, very white industry, whatever. You know, there are multiple challenges to getting anywhere in this industry, but all of us have at least one thing that they can kind of isolate and say, okay, that's my superpower, that's what I can ensure gets done. I was working with a lovely writer just recently, has autism, finds it extremely difficult to talk to anyone, can't do Zooms apart from with people that they know is exceptionally well, all that kind of stuff. But and they were very despondent when they started working with me. And by the way, I'm sharing this with permission, so it's not that I'm talking behind their back. They know that that I will use them as an example. They wanted me to do this, and they said that when they came to me, they felt that their autism would stop them from engaging in the industry. They thought that it would ensure that all the barriers would be shut. And yes, it made life more difficult for them. There's no question of that. But because they were autistic, because they were very hyper detail orientated, I said, that is your superpower. That is the thing that you can do. You are so exceptionally good at all the craft stuff. So now we just apply that to the marketing stuff, and then you break it down into the lists that you love so much. And these are the things that you need to do daily to actually get the word out about your project. And it was like, it was a really special moment because it was like the doors in their minds just opened, because before they thought there's no way I can get anywhere. And when I said, well, you can do this, so why don't we apply it to this? And we obviously work through on a big level with that. And they're flying now. They're doing so well. And it was just a question of being able to move from this space to this space using what you already had.
Yeah, this is the thing with, well, pretty much everything in the film industry and writing in general. You know, when we look at marketing and networking and pitching, there's almost no wrong way of doing a lot of these things. And I think people get very caught up in, oh, marketing must be social media or going live every day or whatever. And networking must be going to events and trying to talk to people that you've never met before and feeling a bit awkward when you're doing it. And you're so right when you say, like, there is a way of doing this that's really going to work for you. And it's not just about finding a way that's manageable or, you know, kind of least annoying. There is genuinely a way that you will really love doing. And it's amazing because people really can feel the difference in the way that you come across with all of these things when you really love what you're doing.
Absolutely. It makes all the difference. It really does. I mean, I got to a space last year where I'd hit burnout. I was just so burnt out. I burnt out 2 years in a row. And I actually did some coaching with another coach just to kind of reinvigorate myself, because I didn't know what to do next. I had literally hit a wall and I was just so exhausted and so peed off, and so much had happened in my life, not just COVID, but some personal stuff as well. And I was like, I don't know what to do next. I just couldn't. I was just like, I'd literally run out of steam, and it was really scary because that had never happened to me before. Even when life had been really difficult, like when I had cancer, for instance, and stuff like that, it was, life has been hard, and yet I'd never literally run out of rope before. There was always even just that little bit left, but I had nothing left. I had literally zero in the tank. And this particular coach said to me, "What is it you love doing?" And I told her, and she goes, "Well, why aren't you doing that?" And I said, "Oh, because I've got to earn money, COVID, all this things going wrong. I've got contracts, I've got this, I've got that, multiple excuses." And she was like, "No, all of that is just guff. What do you love doing? Why are you not doing that? Why are you forcing yourself to do these other things because you feel that you have to?" And I was like, ting. I was like, oh my God, I had imposed so many rules on myself. And it's like, I work for myself. What the hell is going on? Why am I forcing myself to do all these things that I absolutely hate when nobody's even asking me for these things? Like, for instance, I had got it into my head that I needed to go into the blog and change all of the links and fix all the links and do all these other, do all these bloody HTML crap, which I absolutely hate. No one had asked me to fix any links in the blog. No one had asked me to do any of that. And yet I was taking on this mammoth job that I absolutely hated, that no one had asked me for. No one cared. It's like occasionally somebody might write to me and say, "Oh, by the way, in this article, this link doesn't work anymore." And I would go, "Oh, thanks." And then I'd go and fix it. That's what I used to do. And yet in 2021, for reasons I don't even know, I was doing this mammoth project to fix it. Why? I was like doing that to myself. I was literally torturing myself. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. We torture ourselves because we want to have to work hard, because then that makes us somehow morally superior in some way. And yet working hard is not the kind of destination. It's loving your work. That's the destination. That's the thing that we should be doing. And yes, fix things when they need to be fixed. Obviously do that. You need to maintain your stuff. But why torture yourself? And that was a real kind of eye-opener for me.
Yeah. It's really funny when you say you kind of torture yourself into working hard, because creative work is universally disrespected a lot of the time, even in the film industry,
Oh
even in
yeah.
the creative industry. So the idea of sitting and writing doesn't usually count as hard work in most people's minds. And it's really funny when you look through someone's to-do list, and you ask them what they've done that day. If you were to work out their priorities from the order of things they did things in, if they spent the whole day, answering emails, and then they had a bit of time in the evening for writing, you'd say, oh, well, obviously emails is more important to you than writing is. And you watch them kind of go, no, absolutely not, absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, well, write first then. So when it comes to really prioritizing your writing and really making the time for it, and kind of moving past a little bit of that guilt of sitting and typing doesn't really count as hard work, what are some easy, relatively easy ways for people to actually get into that space of consistently writing rather than waiting for inspiration to strike?
Yeah, I mean that's a really important thing to kind of think about as well, because I mean a lot of people say that you're only a writer if you write every day, and it's like, that's bullshit to start with. I have never written every day in my life. Never. I'm what I call a binge writer. I write in like epic blocks. But of course that is down to the fact that I'm quite lucky is not the real kind of sense of the word, because I've never had a proper job. I've always been a writer, so it's hard for me to kind of understand what it's like. I mean, I used to be a teacher. I mean, when I say I've never had a proper job, I've always just worked for like contracts. So I do 6 months here, 3 months there, all that kind of stuff. So I've never had a consistent job, a consistent career in another field. My consistent career has always been the writing. So I am a binge writer, and there are people out there who are also binge writers. And I think the key is to understand what you need in the first instance. That would be my first tip. I mean, the idea of writing every day fills me with just horror. I hate that idea. No, I won't do it. I've never done it, and I won't do it. So are you a binge writer, or are you someone that needs to write every single day, or are you somewhere in between? I think that would be my first kind of tip, to actually work that out, because I get far more excited, like the coach told me to do. I get far more excited about having a block of writing time to get something done than, building it up bit by bit. Other people are the exact opposite, and most people are probably somewhere in between. So find that out first, which you are. I think the newer the writer you are, the more you need to get into some kind of writing habit. And certainly when I wrote my first novel, I had to write like 250 words a day just to get it done, because it felt like an epic uphill struggle. Whereas now I can write, 2,000, 3,000 words in one session without too much of a hassle. Whereas before I was just sitting there going, oh my God, 200 words, nightmare. So you've got to kind of get into it. So maybe a writing every day is better for the newer writers. So yeah, find that out first. The second thing that I would say is, if you want to get consistent, but consistent doesn't mean every day. So I think my second tip would be to work out how many words you need to write, and actually break that down. One thing I always do is say I need to write 100,000 words for a novel, and I usually set a kind of parameter that I want to get that written in. So I'm about to start a new novel. I want to finish it by December. That's my ideal date. My middling date would be the end of January, and my latest date would be the end of February. So I've got 3 possible things to hit between September and possibly February. I'll probably finish it by the end of December, but if I don't, then I've given myself that leeway to get it written. I believe in breaking it down into chunks, and so each week, if I want to get it finished by the end of December, I'm going to have to write 8,000 words a week. If I want to get it finished by the end of January, I'm going to need to write approximately 4,000 to 5,000 words a week. And if I want to get it finished by the end of February, I'm going to need to write 2,000 to 3,000 words a week. So I've broken it down into those 3 spots. And I think that really helps, because when I did teacher training, one thing they really impressed on us was the notion of concrete goals. So you didn't go into a classroom and say, I want all of my students to understand the themes of Mice and Men by the end of the term, because what does that mean? It's not concrete. Okay, so we had to break it down into, they need to have read the book, they need to have done this number of comprehensions, they need to have done this, and this, all concrete, so that you can actually measure them. And I've taken that into my writing. So measurable, concrete goals, and breaking down the word count is really key in that. If you don't work in word counts, then maybe work in pages. We tend to work in pages in screenwriting, for example, over word counts in novels. And my third kind of tip for getting stuff done, I think, would just be, don't put too much on yourself. Like, loads of people say to me, oh, if I'm writing my novel, my kids are eating chocolate spread sandwiches and I haven't done the ironing. It's like, who cares? Seriously, who cares? Your kids don't care if they're eating chocolate spread sandwiches and watching too much Netflix. They do not care. And you are not a bad parent for letting them do that every now and again while you get something done. It's really not a problem. I have a lot of parents come to me saying, I feel so guilty. My kids are watching so much TV and I haven't cooked all week and they're making toasties. It's like, do you really think that is going to destroy their childhood? It's not. And actually, if you think about it, if they see their parent, their father, but especially their mother, because remember, mothers in society are notoriously undervalued, and we have to put ourselves last. And if they see their mother going for their dreams, that is going to inspire them to go for their dreams. That can only be a good thing. So who cares about too many chocolate spread sandwiches or toasties, too much Netflix? Who cares? My son is a grown man now, and he knew when he came to me and said, I want to be a rock star. And that's what he said to me when he was 14. I want to be a rock star. And I didn't laugh at him. I didn't say that's extremely unlikely. I said, okay, how are you going to do it? And he broke it all down about how he was going to do it, and how he was going to do his lessons, how he was going to go to university and have a degree in sound engineering, how he was going to set up a band, how he was going to do this. He's been on the BBC, he's done a tour, he's got a manager, he's doing all the things that I did as a young person for writing, but in music. And part of the reason he's done that is because he knows that creative dreams are possible if you put the work in. And it is hard work, and the odds are impossible. But if you do the things, if you break it all down, he will get there. And I'm certain he'll do very well. He's already done very well for himself. He's only 24 years old. And he is in a place that a lot of kids who, have this pipe dream of music couldn't even understand even where to start. But because he saw me doing my dream, he knows he breaks it down. He's a chip off the old block. He'll get there. He'll do his thing. He's getting really into film soundtracks at the moment. He's working in a sound place that does film soundtracks. And he's like, wow, I never even knew this was possible. And it's because he's got in there and doing his thing, and he saw me doing my thing, and that's really important. And obviously, I'm not just talking to parents here. There are people with various challenges, various issues, various whatevers. The odds are bad, but why shouldn't you go for your dream? Why not you? Lots of people say, why me? Why would I do well? Why not you?
I mean, it's really interesting with breaking it down. That's the easiest way to get over any kind of paralysis or overwhelm, is just write the log line. It's one of the things I do with all of my coaching clients, is we just write log lines and fill in the blank style. And then we'll maybe expand it to a synopsis. And then, we'll maybe either do a character bio or an outline, and then we do a beat sheet. And everyone's very different in the way they work. Some people would rather do all of the visual things and collect all the visual references first. Some people would rather do that afterwards. But when you really break it down into small chunks, even if you're just doing one thing every single day, you're still getting a lot more work done than you would be if you're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to write the script at the weekend. I'm going to write 10 pages at the weekend or whatever. So I love seeing people really break it down, because you don't have any excuses left once you've broken it into really small things, which is why it's sometimes scary for people. But last question, you have done countless number of scripts in terms of coverage, reading, editing. What would you say are kind of green flags and red flags when you're reading through scripts?
Okay, so let's do green flags first. I think the very first thing that marks out a writer as a contender is visual writing. If I open a screenplay and it opens on a really intriguing image, then immediately I go, finally, because the average writer writes, what I call setting the scenes, kind of set dressing. They'll say, oh, this is a house, this is the person, they're standing in the middle of the room, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, thank you. Whereas if they're starting as they mean to go on with visuals, then fantastic. I often give examples in my workshops, and one of the ones that really kind of stays with me is probably something like Sons of Anarchy. It starts with a crow eating carrion in the middle of the road. Immediately we know that this is a dog eat dog kind of world, and it's a thriller probably. And then a motorbike comes through the carrion, because immediately who's in charge. This is about motorcycles. This is about masculinity, toxic masculinity at that. This is a harsh world where anybody can get eaten by it. It's really, and also there's a really lovely bit of dramatic irony to it as well, because the crow that's eating carrion, Sons of Anarchy, when you break down their name into an acronym, it's Sam Crow. And so it's really, really nice piece of writing, that just that single image, one image, and immediately you can see that Kurt Sutter, the writer of Sons of Anarchy, very difficult man, but he knows what he's doing. Immediately marks you out as a contender. So if you can write an image to start that gives us a kind of sense of what's coming, immediately, bam, you're a contender. That's a green flag. Red flag then in comparison would be a character just walking into the frame and starting talking. It's like, please don't do that. Also, another one would be them walking down the street. It's like, that doesn't tell us anything. And then they go, oh yeah, well, what about Saturday Night Fever? He's walking down the street. And I'm like, yeah, he is walking down the street. But is that the important thing in that moment? No. He is strutting down the street. He's dressed up to go out and he's carrying a paint can. What the hell is going on there? So it's not the walking that's important. It's the paint can and the fact that he is dressed up to the nines and yet he's carrying a paint can. What's going on there? That immediately brings us into the story. And I think that's something that the average writer doesn't necessarily understand. Where do we start? What does it say about the characters? What does it say about the story world? What does it say about, the setup and what's going to happen next? Even if that's a lie, why is it a lie? So that's a red flag and a green flag. Another green flag that marks a writer out as a contender is, do I know what this is? Very often I'll read a log line or a one-page pitch and I'll be like, I don't know what this is. I know what they think it is, but it's muddy. The concept here just doesn't really tell me what it is and what's going on and why I should care or be interested or invest any of my time in this. So yeah, green flag, red flag there. So green flag would be a very strong concept that's very obvious, that has a hook to it, that makes me want to go, oh, okay. And the average writer probably doesn't know what the hook really is. A hook is either dramatic or commercial or both. And a great example of a commercial hook would be something like dinosaurs or giant robots. They're very commercial hooks because people love dinosaurs and giant robots and vampires and all of that, time travel, all of that kind of stuff. That's a hook and it's pre-sold. It makes us come into the story and go, ooh, I love these things. What's going to happen with these things? What is that? So if we take time travel as an example, as soon as I saw Paper Girls drop on Amazon Prime, apparently it was a comic book series. I don't know anything about it. I had literally never heard of Paper Girls before it dropped on Amazon Prime, which was about a month ago. And it's 4 diverse girls in the 1980s, and they time travel by accident from 1988 to 2019. Boom, I'm in. That's a commercial hook. We love that shit because I love time travel. People who don't love time travel, they're not going to watch it. They're immune to that hook. But the average person who likes the commercial hook of time travel will go, ooh, Paper Girls. I might not have heard of that, but it's got time travel in it. It's got diversity in it. It's set in the 80s, which is very cool, has been since Stranger Things started. Boom, I'm in. And that's a commercial hook. It's that kind of cultural desire that people love for some reason. A dramatic hook then would be asking us to put ourselves in the protagonist's place for some reason. So, for example, Sinister has got a great protagonist, dramatic hook. We've got a writer. He moves into a murder house on purpose. Immediately, I'm like, holy crap, why would you move into a murder house? I want to know why this guy would do this. Okay, so that is asking me to put myself in his place. He's moving himself and his family into a murder house. He knows, nobody else in the family knows. Immediately, I'm like, ooh, I want to see the drama of this. I want to see what's going to happen when his wife realizes that he's moved them into a murder house. Because I know, as the guy, I'm super interested in murder houses. I'm super interested in them. I think a lot of people are, because there's that ghoulish kind of thing. But equally, as a wife, if my husband moved us into a murder house knowingly, I'd kill him. I would literally kill him myself. So immediately, that's super dramatic as a starting hook. Super dramatic. And then, of course, it all gets out of control because there's a ghost in the house and he's going to kill everyone, and all these different things are happening. But I was most interested in the drama of, you've moved into a murder house. What now?
Yeah. Yeah, I could listen to you talk about writing forever. I won't do though, because you're very busy. But in terms of where people can find you, other great things you have, bangtowrite.com. Obviously, you're on social media everywhere. You have masterclasses coming up, as you mentioned, in September. There's novel writing. Is there anything else that you think this is going to make the most difference to people that I can send them to?
I think if you want to write a novel, then please do join us on September the 17th, because even if you can't make it on the weekend, you still get a replay. So you've got like the replay for a year, and then that's all my Zoom courses. You get the replay for a year so that you can do the course at your own pace. I've got the ones over on Teachable as well. And everybody who takes my classes, obviously, if you have any questions and things like that, then by all means drop them in an email or put them in the class notes on Teachable as well. So it's bangtowrite.teachable.com. There's actually a free course over there called the Foundations of Writing Craft, where I break down what I call the holy trinity of writing craft, which is concept, characters, and structure. So please do fill your boots on all the free stuff that you can find on the resources page on Bang to Write, because there's a PDF gallery as well of there's a logline cheat sheet and a plotting worksheet and all that kind of stuff. So please fill your boots of those. And like I said, if you take any of my paid master classes, then feel free to send me questions and things like that, because that way you can still get the interactive part with me as well if you do it at a later date. I'm only doing one in-person event at the moment, which is down at Exeter Phoenix. I've got my screenwriting courses there in September, and I've got another one coming up in November. The one in September is called Beginners Screenwriting, and I'm not really sure why they call it that, because it's not necessarily completely beginners. We go into quite a lot of detail. We do a lot of work on ideas and concepts at Exeter Phoenix, and we really put them under the microscope and stress test them. So if you come in the morning with an idea, you'll leave in the afternoon knowing what you need to do next with your idea, and how to kind of really get that on the page as well, because that's the whole kind of purpose of that workshop. So yeah, please do join us in September or November, either at Exeter Phoenix or on Zoom. And equally go to bangtowrite.com/resources. You'll find all the free stuff on there, including the free course in Teachable.
Amazing. This is what I love about your whole ethos, is that I think a lot of writers get stuck in this idea of they do the creative work and then they kind of have to wait for other people to get involved or get the funding or whatever. And your entire ethos is, look at how much of this you are actually in control of. Look at how much you can actually get done. You don't have to sit and wait for permission from other people. You don't have to sit and wait for other people to judge your work through a lens that maybe you don't want them to look at it through and kind of make their own assumptions with it. There is so much that you can do and that you have control over in terms of getting your work out there. So thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of your tips and exciting lessons and just everything else with us. So I will let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. And I highly encourage everyone to, even if it's just on Instagram, the value that you share on there in terms of writing, characters, structures, as you say, it makes my day seeing your posts on Instagram. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.